Hail Caesar!
Hail!
I think I understand how people fall for cults now. How often do you think of the Roman Empire? Do you wish to fight for the glory of Rome, brought to you now in shiny new American sports gear? Of course you do. I'm gonna be completely honest, I walked into doing this quest just for the sake of doing this video. Why is the Legion actually kind of cool? If the NCR is supposed to be the obvious good guy the game is pointing you towards, the Legion's supposed to be the obvious bad guy, but the deeper you dive, the more you realize that it's not that the NCR is good or that the Legion is bad, but they're perfect foils for each other, and we're gonna talk about it.
Now you're talking. That is the ring-a-ding move, baby.
We open the Legion's questline by talking to Caesar himself, who tells us to destroy the bunker under the fort and then go kill Dr. House because the Legion is adamantly against drugs, including Vicodin. Caesar actually reveals some of his hand here, pun entirely intended, by this being his first ask of the courier. Caesar's goal is to reshape the political landscape of the Mojave before going into the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, and the obvious other major player in the Mojave is House, and conveniently a new opportunity to meet Robert House and remove him from play just entered the picture. Or so Caesar thinks. What's so interesting about this is Caesar's so quick to assume that you would just do what you're told. This isn't a crazy assumption, everyone around him does what they're told, but they've also been brainwashed into believing he's a god, and when enough people believe you're a god, you tend to be a little overconfident. Similar to House, Caesar is not a god, but he certainly can't stand for another idol to stand where he believes he should be. His overconfidence seeps out into his speech, and as we will see, that overconfidence can be broken under the right conditions.
Stand ready for my arrival, worm.
Caesar has 3 factions you need to meet, and each one represents the preparation Caesar's making for his arrival. The stage must be set and the board must be prepared. The first of these factions is the Boomers. Like the NCR, Caesar really only cares about their munitions, so we see him flirt with the idea of political assassination, but he doesn't actually seem interested in committing to that relationship. It's not you. It's me. And he says he'd rather have them alive and agreeing to it than not. Next on the list is the White Gloves, which are not cannibals, we swear. Caesar tells you outright that they're cannibals so that you can blackmail the White Gloves into being allies, which doesn't even work because you walk in like, oh my gosh guys, human flesh tastes amazing, and they're like,
Oh my god, it totally is!
I think this is meant to show the depravity the Legion is willing to put up with as long as it doesn't directly break their laws, but for all their suits and ties, White Gloves just strike me as a bunch of hippies trying ecstasy for the first time.
If I got a plate of crack for the table, would you have some?
The last faction here is the Brotherhood of Steel. Caesar knows how hard they fought at Helios, and he knows the power of the Brotherhood of Steel in full force, and he'd rather not deal with it.
Good, that's one less loose end.
What's interesting about all these interactions is Caesar's preparing Vegas to be his Rome. Caesar understands he needs trade partners to maintain his economy, so he keeps the boomers alive. Caesar understands he needs to keep the upper crust happy so that the rest of the citizens that aren't military stay in line, so he allies himself with the White Gloves. He understands he can't have a threat in his backyard, so he eliminates the Brotherhood of Steel. This is where he will plant his feet, and this is where he will stand. All that stands in the way is the NCR and a brain tumor.
All right, let's state the obvious. There's something wrong with me.
Throughout Caesar's assignments, he'll keep having headaches. With a high enough medicine skill, you can realize that it's a brain tumor, or with a high enough speech skill, you can lie about it. Either way, Caesar is dying, and the cracks within the force of destruction that is the Legion begins to form. Caesar is the epicenter of his Legion. It's his commands that drive the 1995 four-door Jeep Grand Cherokee, and without him, Caesar's built the Legion with no fear, but when facing death himself, he cowers behind his throne, making sure his Legion doesn't see that he's no god. I feel like this is what makes him a good counter to House. Both are men driven by a fear of death and a desire to build shrines to their own egos, but all it takes is a golf club and a tumor to tear those egos back to simple men fearing for their lives. And if Caesar were to die, sooner than later, the Legion will fall apart. The responsibility of that choice falls onto you, the player, to crack the Legion's armor or to reinforce its resolve.
Oh well, at least you're here now. I was starting to get lonely out here by myself.
Whether you choose to save Caesar or not, what follows after is the presidential speech, which is a treat. Okay. I feel like this quest shows the military superiority that the Legion has. Because of the failures in the systems it takes after, the NCR lets a Legion spy not only work at the dam, but bribe his way into the presidential speech. The amount of information that Cato has for you is staggering in comparison to the nothing the NCR gives you in preparation for this quest. Also, Cato is so sarcastic, it's great. Since this is the last demoralizing blow the Legion has against the NCR before the battle, let's talk about how different the systems that govern these groups are. The NCR takes after pre-war America. I would actually argue that the NCR has what the game calls old world blues, where there's this rose-tinted glasses look at America before the war. But as we see, America before the war was drastically flawed, which led to its own destruction. In contrast, the Legion takes after an even older world, one that specifically existed because a republic failed. The Roman Empire came after the Roman Republic. There's a reason that Julius Caesar was stabbed, and why that event caused the Caesars after him to disband the Roman government. Our Caesar, the one that's in New Vegas, sees the failure of the American Republic and believes that what comes after is an empire. In all fairness, Caesar has a point. The old world government is what caused the Great War, so why would we go back to it? Caesar trades freedom for security, and it is the strength of his security that will win him this war.
Our roads into NCR are hung with the bodies of those who attempted to negotiate with us.
I told you this was a wash. The Legion outmatches the NCR in tactics and manpower, so when the second battle begins, it's practically already won as Legion soldiers swarm the dam. What I find interesting between the NCR side and the Legion side is the companionship you as the player have with the Legion. The Legion views you as an equal, so when you get to the firefight with General Oliver, the Legion backs you up. But when you approach Legate Lanius from the NCR side, you're all alone. Also, listen to this man's voice.
For now, come. We must see to the burning of the dead.
That man Lanius is a force of nature, and I'd rather be on his side. But with all the tactics, spying, and strength of the Legion against the tragically undermanned and understaffed NCR dealing with bureaucracy without intel, it's no wonder the Legion won. A bull with the target will certainly do more damage than a hibernating bear.
And so the courier who had cheated death in the cemetery outside Goodsprings cheated death once again.
After the battle was won, the Legion storms Vegas like it's a red carpet, massacring those in their way before establishing control in Vegas. Weirdly, the Legion occupation is surprisingly peaceful after the genocides. Yes, the Khans no longer have an identity, the followers of Apocalypse no longer have a home, and the Fiends and Kings no longer have their lives, but for the most part, cities like Prem become trade hubs, and the Boomers and Goodsprings were left to their own devices. Caesar only handled what was necessary to establish control, but after that, he left people to their own devices as long as they followed his laws. Caesar knows what's necessary to run his empire and has prepared Vegas to be an economic hub for his nation. But once again, when Caesar's gone, who has the capability to run the machine without running it into the ground? Legate Lanius? Macaulay Culkin? A certain apocryphal fiddler? Only time will tell, but as history showed, Rome fell, and Vegas will eventually fall too. I was not expecting to enjoy the Legion side, but kinda as I said about the NCR, they aren't necessarily the good guys and the Legion aren't necessarily the bad guys. They're different governments with failures, and that will change how you view them. I do believe this to be one of the worst endings for Vegas, though. At some point, Caesar will die, Vegas will fall, and the world will return to what it was just after the Great War. Chaos. But what do you think of the Legion? Let me know in the comments. Either way, like if you like, subscribe if you subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again when we do a House MD watch party.